running a growing business. The GPS girl is one of her avenues in the Big Apple, New York. Oh my goodness. On her road to success, she's encountered many starts, stops, detours, and a few disasters along the way. But she has proved that it's never too late to recalculate. So, on that note, let's all welcome Karen Jacobsen.
And the only woman men will take directions. Who has been in a car with a GPS? Excellent. And who's had it set to the female voice? Wonderful. So there is a chance that you and I have taken lots of fabulous trips together. I meet a lot of people and they want to tell me about their relationship with their GPS. And you laugh, but they do. People have a relationship with their GPS. They want to tell me about the wonderful trips we've taken together. And they talk to me as if I was really there. Like I met Ryan, and he said, "Oh, Karen, last weekend, you and I, we went on a trip to my cousin's wedding in Milwaukee, and we had such a great time." And then there was Janice, and she said, "Oh, Karen, I'm in Los Angeles. I've just arrived at LAX, and you're directing me around LA." And then there was a woman I met at an event, and she came up to tell me that I needed to come into the other room with her. She said, "I've got a whole group of girlfriends there in the other room. You've got to come with me and meet them, because if it wasn't for you, we would still be lost in the mountains of Italy." There is one particular word people want to tell me about. And it's a word people don't like very much, and that word is recalculating. But I'm here tonight to tell you that recalculating is actually good news, because by the time you hear the word recalculating, you've already taken those turns and you are back on track, headed to your destination. Now, in the car, we take a wrong turn, a few quick turns, we're headed to where we want to, usually and ideally, to where we want to be going. In life, when we take a wrong turn, we can end up wandering along on a back road, sometimes for years. If only we used recalculating, the power of recalculating, the power of being able to course correct, to do some different things and get ourselves back on track, to let go of what did or didn't happen in that moment. It's easier said than done, isn't it? When things don't go the way we want them to go. So I thought, in our time together, I would share with you the 5 directions for recalculating, which is a 5-step process you can use at any time in business or in life when things do not go as planned. How does that sound? That sounds good? All right. And because the amazing Jessica is a make it happen kind of woman, you are going to get some musical performance along the way. Yeah. don't say. We're gonna take a little drive tonight. We're gonna speak our minds, and in the morning light we'll be alright. We're gonna take a little drive tonight. So I want to take you back to the beginning. I grew up in a town called Mackay. Do I have any Mackay people here tonight? Anybody who's been? You're a Mackay person? Did that count? Oh, it doesn't happen that often. Awesome, you and me, Mackay. Come on. Hashtag, this is Mackay. So, who'd like to go to Mackay? You all want to go to Mackay. I have no idea. Mackay is goodness. It's gorgeous, beautiful sugar white sand and turquoise blue water and 5 out of the 10 most poisonous snakes in the world. Paradise. I was sitting in the family living room watching the telly. I was 7 years old, and on came the most important and most influential person in the entire world, Olivia Newton-John. Right?
Yes.
And when I saw her, my life changed, and I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I had direction. And I realized I wanted to be a professional singer and move to America. A few years down the track, and I am living in Sydney, and I am singing 2 to 5 nights a week in piano bars, in 5-star hotels, and in other lovely venues. You couldn't turn the radio or the TV on in the 1990s without hearing my speaking or my singing voice on commercials and, in different campaigns. And I was performing on live television, and it was an exciting life. I owned my own apartment. But I realized that I was off route, that I was in the wrong country. Because the dream that I had when I was a little girl was to become a professional singer and to move to America. Mm-hmm. And here I was in Sydney, and things were successful, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I set out to do. I had stopped short of that goal. The first direction for recalculating is to notice you are off route. Simply to notice when you are off route. Because the moment you become aware that things are not going the way you want them to go, that's when you can do something about it. That's when recalculating can begin. To notice you are off route. Now I would like you to give it a go with your very best GPS voice, and I know you have one. When I recorded that voice system, they wanted me to sound calm and consistent. So I want you to repeat after me in your most calm, consistent GPS voice. Notice you are off route.
Notice you are off route.
Oh, that was good. That was good. The first direction for recalculating is just to notice that you are off route. The second direction for recalculating is to be willing to change direction. To be willing to change direction, to be willing to do things differently to how you've always done them. Now, being willing, this is the most challenging part of recalculating. Has anyone here had anything to do with toddlers or young children at any point in their lives? Very good. So you would be painfully aware that if that little person is not willing to do what you want them to do, I mean, you cannot make a child do something they do not want to do, right? Adults are not that different. You cannot make somebody do something they do not want to do. So to be willing to change direction, to be willing to do things differently for ourselves is the second direction for recalculating. So I'm living in Sydney and I realise I'm in the wrong country and I start to tell everybody I know, I'm moving to America! And I get a lot of, what would you want to do that for? Now, as business people and entrepreneurs in the room, that, of course, it's only me that's happened to, right? You've never had an idea and thought it was a really good one and had somebody say, what would you want to do that for? And here was my most painful response. Who do you think you are that you would like to move to America? I'm just a girl who wants to move to America. That's it. So to be willing to change direction. So I start to tell everybody that I'm going to move to America. And around that time I am studying with an amazing vocal teacher called Carrie Bedell. And I learned that the value of one performance equaled the same value as 50 rehearsals. So you can practice something 50 times, but if you go out and actually deliver it once, it has the same value as 50 practices. Oh my gosh. So I was like, I gotta fast track this. I need to just get on stage as much as I possibly could. And one of the reasons I needed to do this is because I had been dealing with an issue that I've been dealing with ever since I was tiny. And if I was going to move to America, I needed to overcome it. And this was that I suffered from chronic anxiety as a child. And so whenever I had to perform in the school musical, if there was a piano exam coming up or a special performance, I would have such extreme abdominal pains that I would be home from school for up to a week at a time. And they would send me for all kinds of tests to check what was wrong with me. And at the end of every round of tests, they would come out to my parents and they would say, Mr. and Mrs. Jacobsen, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your daughter. It's just nerves. So here I was, growing up, loving to sing and be on stage, and I knew that's what I wanted, but my body was sending me all kinds of very confusing signals. And I thought, well, if I'm going to move to New York, I need to get this handled once and for all. I mean, I was an adult at this point, and I had some strategies to handle it, and it certainly was not as debilitating as before. However, it still had me. I didn't have it. You know what I mean? So, to be on stage as much as I could, to be performance ready, is what I set out to do. So when I got to New York, I would accept performances for money, for no money, as a guest on somebody else's bill, concerts in my own right, so I could just be on stage as much as possible and push through this anxiety and get it handled once and for all. Because my strategy was that if I could reduce the lag time between when I knew I was going to be on stage and when I was actually on stage, I would have no time to get upset. I would have no time to be anxious, right? If you're in action and if you're doing, and that applies lot of different actions we have to take as business people. Sometimes we don't feel like it, and we don't want to. And this is when recalculating can be very, very handy. How might you know it's time to recalculate? It's usually an emotional response. Angry, frustrated, upset, or the I don't feel like it, which is my personal, strength. The area I have the biggest challenges with is the I don't feel like it. But at this point, I just knew I had to get on stage as much as I could and really push through it. And it wasn't until I was 31 years of age that I really started to build a good relationship with that anxiety and that I could really be in charge of it. And I had the absolute honour a few weeks ago of singing the national anthem at the State of Origin game. And I got to stand in the middle of 52,000 people at Suncorp Stadium and sing our song. I mean, it was home state, hometown girl, home crowd, and we won. It was a long road to be able to not only go out there and feel good about the performance I gave, but my experience of life and of myself leading up to walking out onto that field without being somebody who was really difficult to be around for my family's sake in advance, let alone being in my own head. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of work to do. That second direction for recalculating is to be willing to change direction, to be willing to do things differently to how you've done them before. You want a different result. You've got to take some different actions. But if you are not willing, it's not going to go anywhere. So number one, to notice you are off route. Number two, in your very best GPS voice, be willing to change direction.
Be willing to change direction.
You guys are good. You guys are good. The third direction for recalculating is to clarify your destination. I had a plan, but again I let it go. I'm not afraid of making a choice. I need to know the truth. Would you help me to find what is lost inside my life? Is a tool of endless broken dreams. Why am I back at the very beginning? I thought I had it all. Am I losing the reason I started? If it's not for the love of being here, not for the passion every day, if it's not for the joy of melting moments, I'm not gonna stay. Would you stop with the talk? There are many simple ways. Somehow, despite all the obvious roads, I have managed to wind up in some peculiar maze of thoughts leading me somewhere silent. If it's not for the love of being here, not for the passion every day, if it's not for the joy of melting moments, I'm not gonna stay. if it's not for the love of being here, if it's not for the passion every day, if it's not for the joy of melting moments, I'm not gonna stay. I'm not gonna My first love was music. I only ever thought I would sing, write songs, play piano. That was going to be my entire life. Then I moved to New York City and I was asked to audition by a client. They were looking for a native Australian female voiceover artist living in the northeast of the United States. And I read that brief, and I thought, well, that's a description of me. This must be my job. And I went to the audition and I got the job. And at the audition, they asked me to say some things like, at the next intersection, turn left. And some things like, you have reached your destination. And everybody's favourite, recalculating. And at the end of the audition, they said, you've got the job. We need to take you up to upstate New York, to a town called Ithaca, and we are going to record for 50 hours to create a voice system based on your speaking voice. And we need to have you up there for 3 weeks. We're only going to let you record for 4 hours per day, so your voice does not sound fatigued or tired in any way. And then we are going to capture, here's the technical part, you ready? Every combination of syllables possible, so we can chop that up and create a voice system based on your speaking voice. So up I went, and from 9 till 1 every day I would record, and at 1 o'clock I would go to lunch, and then go back to my hotel room and write songs and rest my voice until the next day, and that continued for 3 weeks. Then I went back to my life in New York City. And, more than a year later, I received a phone call from a girlfriend. And it was around Christmas time. She said, Karen, it's Nadia. She said, my husband and I are driving from Maine back down to the city after Christmas. And I bought my husband one of those new GPS thingos. And we were driving, and then we thought, let's put it on the Australian voice and just take a listen. So we put it on there, and Karen, oh my goodness, Karen, it's you. You're in the GPS. And I turned to my husband and I said, oh my goodness, I bought you Karen Jacobsen for Christmas. And that is how I found out that my speaking voice was in what has now ended up being over 400 million GPS and smartphone and elevator and cruise ship and hotel and goodness knows where else devices around the world, giving people directions, telling them where to go and what to do, even while I'm here with you tonight. This was an unexpected development in my singer-songwriter career. I did not have any thought that something like this could happen. Clarify your destination. Somehow in there, I knew there was something in it. There was something to do. And it took me a while to work it out, but I realized there was a brand to be created. People would come up to talk to me, and they would treat me as if I was a family member, that they were very familiar with me, like they knew me. They wanted to tell me their GPS stories. They wanted to tell me the name they have for their GPS. Anybody have a name for their GPS that they can share in company? Yes?
Well, my car's name's Charlie,
wonderful. Charlie and Chester. Wonderful. Does anyone else have a name they call their GPS? Nobody's willing to admit the name. Yes, Louise.
Well, my husband Ray knows Karen and refers to it as bloody Karen when he's told to recalculate. So.
Yeah, bloody Karen. That's good. That's good. I recently met a gentleman at an event who told me he was very proud to share that he calls me Mrs. Bossy Pants. But I had this familiar... That's my husband laughing over there. Not able to relate at all to that. But I just, the way that people would talk to me as if they really knew me, I knew there was just something to be created. And ultimately, I made the connection between directions in the car and directions in life, and melded my lifelong love of personal development and empowerment with the fact that my speaking voice was telling people where to go and what to do anyway, and created this brand called the GPS Girl, which is an empowerment brand. And now I speak at events, and I've written 2 books, and at the gpsgirl.com I blog all the time, and I just am creating opportunities to remind people that it is never too late to recalculate. I want you to say that one like you mean it. It is never too late to recalculate. One more time. It is never too late to recalculate. Because no matter how bad things get, and sometimes they get pretty bad. And I'm not just talking about, a bad day at work, or a bad week, or getting to September and wishing the year was over so you could start again. But when life's really, truly difficult circumstances happen, even then, there are things that we can do to shift that energy and just feel just that little bit better. This was so unexpected, but I created a brand, and it was like I had to zoom out and take the satellite view of my life and of my business. And I realized there was a much bigger purpose for me than only singing, which is valuable, but now I had a message to share. To be able to tell people that it really is never too late to recalculate. Notice you are off route. Be willing to change direction. Clarify your destination. The 4th direction for recalculating is to embrace the steering wheel. Embrace the steering wheel. This is about, now that you've clarified your destination and you know where you're headed, because new information might have come to light. So if you've gone off track, or you notice things aren't going the way that you want them to go, and you check back to where you were headed, sometimes that's changed. Sometimes you don't want to be headed where you thought you did, or sometimes you do and you're just on a detour to get there. That 4th direction is to embrace the steering wheel. This is now about, once you know where you're headed, it's like getting yourself in gear. Sometimes we've really got to take a deep breath and get ready to head for what we didn't expect to be heading for, and to get our momentum happening again. To embrace the steering wheel. Well, I am driving in a car in New England with my friend Tom, and I'm pouring out my heart about my relationship with my boyfriend. And Tom is giving me all this fantastic advice on how to fix the relationship. So we get to the end of this period of time, and my boyfriend lives in Los Angeles, and he's rich and he's famous, and he sends me gifts to my postage stamp size apartment in New York City. He sends me boxes of jackets and shoes and girls' jewelry. And the second time I went to visit him, he had bought me a piano so that when I visited, I would have a piano to write songs and to play while I was there. So I really wanted this relationship to work. And I couldn't work out why I wasn't happy. So I'm in the car with Tom. He's giving me all this great advice on how to fix the relationship. And he sends me off to JFK Airport to fly out to LA. So I fly out to Los Angeles and I arrive And I walk into my boyfriend's home, and there's the gorgeous piano. And I look up at him, and I burst into tears. And I realised that I didn't want to fix that relationship with my boyfriend. And I broke up with him. And I went to the airport and I flew back to JFK. And waiting there for me at Terminal 7 was my friend Tom. And we kissed for the first time. And then we really embraced the steering wheel because we were married 4 months later. This was not how my life was supposed to look. I had no idea how we were going to make this work. My friend Tom's travel schedule with his work made my travel schedule look really minimal. I just had no idea how this was going to work. And my life was supposed to look like this over here. I was supposed to marry somebody rich and famous who lived in Beverly Hills and bought me fabulous gifts and sent them to me all the time. But my inner GPS, my inner sense of what was right for myself, was screaming at me to marry Tom Hudak and have his baby. And I listened to it. I had no idea how we were going to work that out. But we did. When your inner GPS or your inner sense of self or your instincts or your intuition or whatever you want to call it is screaming at you to take action around something, listen to it. I mean, we've all had those times where we know something that we would like to do for ourselves, but everybody around us says, oh, no, that's not a good idea, and we listen to them. And then in the end, we realize we should have listened to ourselves. We did know better, even though everyone else didn't. Always listen to your inner GPS. Notice you are off route. Be willing to change direction. Clarify your destination. Embrace the steering wheel. And the fifth and final direction for recalculating is to accelerate. Because when you know, without a shadow of a doubt, where you are headed, you want to harness that momentum. And you want to take action, because action is the only thing that's going to get things done, isn't it, Ben Walker? You want to take action. Everything is a very good idea, but unless you take an action, any action, a simple action, a phone call, a Google search, tell somebody else, write it down, just take an action. And
Siri.
but at that point, when you know where you're headed and you feel that extra energy, harness it, utilize it. It makes everything that little bit easier. Can I have 5 more minutes, Jessica? I'm not out of time yet.
Who's loving this?
Yeah, carry on.
Okay, right. Because I've got the juiciest story for the end.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I couldn't tell that. And I love you.
Right. There's recalculating like an appointment was cancelled or a flight was delayed. And there's recalculating like big, major, totally life turning upside down recalculating. Now, when I married my friend Tom, I married the love of my life, but he came with a very unhappy ex-wife. Now, they were divorced, but financially they weren't completely, totally, absolutely, really, completely divorced. And that led to a lot of legal time and ultimately legal bills. And that continued for 5 years. So during this time, we were juggling, living in Manhattan, trying to work out how to make different payments to keep everything together. And we started to live out of our means, beyond our means. And we started to incur some credit card debt. And that credit card debt started to get bigger. And then we started to inherit some credit card debt from a marriage that wasn't our marriage. And that credit card debt became pretty significant. And we then had a stroke of genius on a way to recalculate and sort it all out. We came into a small amount of money, not enough to pay off that debt, but enough that we could put down a down payment on an apartment. And our strategy was we would buy the apartment, and then a month later we would refinance that apartment, and then we could dump all of that debt, that 30% interest rate credit card debt. Did you have interest rates that high here? No, well, we did. 30%. We could dump all of that down into an 8% mortgage. It was actually an excellent plan. So we closed on the apartment. We closed on the apartment in August of 2007. And a month later, I called Tim, our mortgage guy, and I said, Tim, it's Karen, we're ready to refinance our apartment and dump all that credit card debt into our mortgage. And Tim said, oh, Karen, I'm sorry, but those mortgages, they aren't available anymore. Those subprime mortgages, the mortgages that we could offer without any paperwork, probably because you didn't have the paperwork to give us. We don't have those mortgages available anymore. All the laws have changed. And we were really stuck. Because by this time, I was 6 months pregnant with our baby, and my friend Tom's work had started to dry up, and we were in the entertainment business, which was often the first to go. And we were stuck. We hit rock bottom. We were living in an absolutely gorgeous, brand new apartment, and we didn't have the money for groceries. It was ludicrous. We had noticed we were off route for quite some time, and now we were willing to do whatever it took to get this sorted out once and for all. Clarify your destination. For us, our destination was financial freedom. We wanted to do whatever we could to finally be free of that debt. And embracing the steering wheel, we got ourselves ready to do whatever it would take, and we accelerated and we took action, and here's what we did. First of all, we made contact with a real estate agent, and we put tenants in our gorgeous new home that we did not want to leave so that we could bring in some money right away. I called the airlines and booked frequent flyer-mile tickets for my husband and I and our baby son to fly to Australia, where we lived with my parents for an entire year to get back on our feet. How embarrassing is that, to be a grown woman and move in with my parents? We were so lucky to have them, and that both our families would help us. A lot of people did not spring back from that time. We are very aware of how fortunate we are. I called 19 credit card companies to do deals with them. I did 5-year, 0% deals with these credit card companies. Did you know you can negotiate with your credit card companies?
No.
Yes, you can, and you keep on asking for a supervisor until you get what you want. 19 credit card companies, one by one. I spent 11 months on the phone with the mortgage company from January to December, from Australia, in another time zone, during periods of time when they were not approving any new mortgage modifications in New York State because the laws were changing so rapidly. And finally, on Christmas Eve of 2009, our mortgage modification was approved. And then we could start to make plans to move back into our home. When you recalculate in such a major way, there are unexpected rewards. And for us, they were really obvious. Our baby son got to spend an entire year with his grandparents, and they loved it, and that was not on the cards at all. I got to reconnect with my homeland and my home state, and something like this and huge financial stress can really make or break a couple in a relationship, and I am very proud to say that it put my husband and I on the same page, and we worked so diligently as a team, it made us stronger to get through this to the other side. I feel really fortunate that our families would help us. Now we live with a crystal clear budget. We know where every penny goes. The legal situation is done once and for all. And gosh, I feel so grateful that I have a husband who was willing to live with his in-laws for an entire year. When you recalculate in a big way, there are definitely rewards and gifts. On the 3rd of July of 2012, we made the final payment on our $90,000 worth of credit card debt.
US or Aussie?
US. And I stand before you credit card debt free. It is never too late to recalculate. It might seem really bad, but there is always a way forward. My friend Paul called me and he said, there's a big Australian American gala, association gala is going to happen, and I would love you and your husband to come and be my guests at my corporate table. And on the big night, he said, there are going to be lots of celebrities there. And on the big night, my friend Tom was wearing his tuxedo, and I was wearing my I'm going to meet lots of fabulous celebrities tonight dress. And we arrived and walked in. The room was gorgeous. It was at Cipriani on Wall Street. And we walked in, it was beautiful. And then Paul and I saw each other. He said, Karen, come with me. So he grabbed me and he heralded me across the room to where there was this big swarm of people. And he pushed me through these people to the middle. And there was someone in there. And there I was, standing face to face with the most important and most influential person in the entire world. Olivia Newton-John. And I started to gush. And I said, I just want to thank you so much for the impact that you've had on my life. Every big decision I've made, from where I live to what I do, is because of you, and I want to thank you. She said, that's such a lovely thing to say. What's your name? And I said, Karen Jacobsen. And she said, and I kid you not, you're Karen Jacobsen? I love your CD.
Wow.
And in that moment, I realized that I was okay, that I had reached my destination, and that maybe, just maybe, I was okay. And I know that you are too. Turn to the person next to you, and in your very best, GPS voice. Say, you are okay. You
Again.
Yeah.
recalculate, 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 recalculate. Recalculate, 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 recalculate. It's never too late to recalculate.
Sorry if I just went way too long.
Wow. Okay, one more time, guys. The thing that I'm like, it's funny how you see people on TV and you're just like, oh my gosh, like they're just rocking the world, they're just doing things, and then you actually meet them and they're like, you're a person too.
Yeah.
Like, you've actually been through struggles. I love that Karen actually asked if she should share the most horrific financial disaster ever, and I was like, yeah, like let's do it. And like, oh my goodness, to actually come from that place to now be able to speak with authority. Like, I love that when you get through stuff, like we all know this, right? This is why we're in business. When you get through situations, then you have that extra authority to speak out, and it's so evident in what you do and who you are. Like, this is amazing. So thank you so much, and what an honor, hey! Like, what an honor it is to have someone that's been there, done that experience, and able to share with us. So.
Karen, can I ask a question?
Oh, yes, you can.
I'm so sorry.
That's right.
And feel free if you want.
Yeah.
What did it feel like when you were down at the Origin?
What did it feel like when I was down at the Origin?
Yeah, you're down there on the field and you had all those people around. Like, that was would have been a magical moment.
Someone was just asking me this question because it felt amazing, because where I put my focus was on the people in the stands. Now, if you ever have to get up and speak in front of a group, anybody ever have to do that or have done that and felt really scared? Anybody had any fear? No one, just me. Okay, because the hands went down when I said the word fear. It's the number one fear, right, is to speak in publicly. I have learned, finally, that if I am anxious or nervous about speaking or performing, it's because my focus is where?
On yourself.
On myself. It can be extremely difficult to remember that, and extremely difficult then to shift or recalculate, right, that focus and put it out there with the people that you are there for. Now, my job today is to deliver a story and a message and hopefully share something that's useful, right, and inspirational, Inspire CA. So my job is to make sure I do that for you. Is it important that I do something great for me tonight? No, it's not. It's nice and it's a bonus and I love what I do, so that's fortunate. But my job is to make sure I deliver what I'm there to deliver. At the Origin, it was my job. I saw it as an honour to represent every Aussie, especially the Queensland, in the middle of that stadium, and to deliver our national song in a way that I felt was a respectful, honouring way to do that. So my focus was on that and delivering that and creating a great experience for 52,000 people. And as I said earlier, it took so many years of being talked down off the cliff, for want of a better
Been in touch yet?
What was the
Has
second?
Tesla been in touch?
Has Tesla been in touch?
Yeah.
Oh, no, but I think I should be in touch with them. That sounds
Absolutely.
good. Tesla sounds good.
So you could be the voice of their vehicles?
I like the sound of that.
Guaranteed.
Thank you.
You've obviously accomplished a lot and done a lot in your life. What are your visions and your goals and your dreams now moving forward?
I still have a really long list. And I read them every day. I have a long list of goals and dreams, and they're big, and I'll share some of them with you, but I can't help but, because I've got the microphone, saying, write down what you want, read it every darn day. It might seem like too much. It's not. This is how you stay present to what you want. It is how you create it, because sometimes we need to talk ourselves into allowing ourselves to have what we want. Sometimes we have no idea what it is in the first place, so we need to do that work first. But I read them every day. Some of my goals, my future goals, I would love to host my own talk show. So I'd love to have a talk show that's all about direction and you can hold me up? Come on, let's make that happen. And then I'd like to have my band on set, and so I would sing with my band, my musical guests would sing with my band, I'd chat with them about the directions of their lives. You can see this, right? It's going to happen. So that's one of my dreams. I'd love to be invited to sing or be in some other way performing at the Commonwealth Games on the Gold Coast. That would be an amazing life opportunity. There are so many more. To just be able to continue travelling, as I say, I like to be able to speak, sing, write and travel. And to be able to do a combination of those while maintaining a fabulous family life, that's everything.
Just a follow-up question.
Yes.
That's it. Yes.
So when you have these such big visions and dreams where you're aiming for it, talking about recalculating to get on that path to head in that direction, when they're so big and or they seem so big, what do you do? What are your first steps? Or what do you do? They're obviously not just big dreams for you, but this is something you're going to actually have to really head towards.
Something that's taken me quite a lot to learn, and I'm still learning, is there are times for things too. Like I've had the idea of having a talk show for years. It started out as having the idea for having a travel show. Travel the world with the GPS girl. I wrote the theme song, I recorded it. I partnered with a production company in Los Angeles. We shot a pilot. We've shopped it. I've gone through all of that. It didn't get picked up. I was certain it would, and it didn't yet. So there are times for things, and to not fight against the flow of the river, of the energy of what's happening, is something that I still am learning. I absolutely envisioned singing at State of Origin. And in February, I think it was, when I realised what dates I was going to be in Australia, I looked around. I said, what's going on in Australia that's big while I'm going to be here? And I noticed that one of the Origin Games was here. I'm like, you beauty, because I really wanted to do that one day. It was on my bucket list or my life list. And I set about to connect with the decision maker. I wanted to be with the decision. I couldn't find the decision maker. I'm pretty good at that usually. And I make cold calls, and I'm not afraid of picking up the phone and calling whoever. And I was going at this from about 5 different angles. And I could get to somebody who said, oh, they've had a meeting and they like the idea, but I couldn't get to whoever was the decision maker. It just didn't seem to happen that way. And I came to a point where I kept getting this feedback. We were up to about 5 weeks before that, oh yeah, now QRL have had a meeting and they love the idea. NRL are on board. Oh, you should have heard from somebody by now. I was getting all this information, but no, and I didn't have the phone number of the person. Very unusual. And finally, I got the email, and it was an independent production company who books the music, who he hadn't been hired again for this year. So that's why it took so long. They hadn't hired him yet. So no one had made the phone call. I don't know if this is interesting or useful, but this is just I'm figuring it out every day as I go along, all right? And this was just an example of I just decided I let it go the week before. I was like, I can't make this, I want to make this happen.
This is such a perfect fit for everybody, is how I could see that. But I let it go, and then finally the email came, and we got on the phone, and it was done. But that to me was a really great affirming experience, that I can see a fit for something, go for it, and have it happen. Did I make it happen? You know, I've got plenty of examples where I didn't. But I feel very empowered by that experience, because I went for something with everything I could from the other side of the world, you know, in another time zone and all of that. And it ended up coming off and living up to the vision I had for it.